Let us talk about ratio and proportion. Reviewing the definition of ratio, that it is a relation that compares two numbers or quantities. For example, in this figure, you have 2 units of orange strips and 1 unit of blue strips. So your ratio is 2:1. You can have 1:2, 2:3, etc. Or you can present it this way, 2/1 or 1/2. Or it can be represented 2:1 or 1:2, etc. While proportion is a statement or equation that equates two ratios. So this is a proportion. You have two ratios being presented in an equation. Okay? So, pag proportion, meron na siyang equation. Let us consider this very simple example of a tray and the eggs. We can see in the figure that one tray contains 30 eggs, meaning one tray is to 30 eggs. Now, here comes the problem. How many trays will be needed if you have 60 eggs? So the answer is obvious, of course, that you will need 2 trays. Pero tingnan natin. Okay, so we set up our uh, representation for this problem. X, since we do not know how many trays, that will be X is to 60 eggs. Then we proceed. This is now your the second ratio based from the first relationship. Okay. This is your problem. How many trays? You again present it in a ratio form. X tray is needed for 60 eggs. Now we proceed to setting up the proportion. Remember, a proportion is an equation consisting of ratios. So we proceed. This is now the equation. Okay. So since you have now the equation, this is now the proportion. So you can now solve for x. Okay, so solving for x, you will uh, uh, put this to the other side of the equation. So that will be 1 times 60 over 30. Your x will be 2. Okay, so let us now proceed to solving the problems. So in number 9, you are given 5 liters of gas that contains 0.965 mole. Now, this is your first ratio. 5 is to 0.965. Now, basing from this first relationship or ratio, if the same if the amount of gas is increased to 1.80 moles, what will be the new volume? So your unknown here is the volume. So we proceed to setting up the relationship. 5 liters of gas contains 0.0965 moles. Your relationship is between volume and number of moles. Okay, the next is what amount of gas, if the amount of gas is increased to 1.8 mole, what new volume will result? So that will be your X. These are your ratios, and then you proceed to setting up your proportions. And then you can now solve the problem, solve for X, and that will be 9.3 liters. Take note, the mole units will cancel out, leaving you a liter unit. Okay, we proceed to the other problem where you are still given the relationship between volume and mole, but this time the volume is in ml. Okay, so you are given 0.00810 mole of neon gas occupying 214 ml at certain temperature. The problem is, what volume would 0.00684 mole of neon gas occupy under the same condition? Okay, so this is your original ratio, and you will obtain the unknown from the original ratio when you set up the proportion. Okay, so after having set up the proportion, you can now proceed to solving for x, where x in ml is 180.7 ml. Okay, take note, the mole units will cancel out.